But he's done one of the greatest jobs in the history of movies and other things. And he's got a lot of interesting things happening aside from what you're talking about. But it is a big market share. There's no question about that. It could be a problem.
Joining us for more, then, is our deals reporter, Manuel Baigorri. Thank you, Manuel, for being with us. So how seriously should investors and deal makers maybe take Donald Trump's antitrust warning? He did say this has got to go, into a process, but he was certainly raising a few concerns.
And it's a great question. It remains to be seen how smooth or how bumpy the regulatory approvals for this very large transformative deal will be in the months ahead. Obviously, investors are watching that closely. Deal makers in general, it's in everybody's head, right? It's like, okay, this is a really massive deal, but how plausible is it that they go from signing the agreement into completing the deal? We've seen other major deals falling apart in that process. There could be a lot of holdbacks, whether the FTC or whether other regulatory bodies will look into it and will analyze the critical issues, how that will ultimately impact consumers and how much market share Netflix will ultimately have, whether or not there might be some asset disposals that need to come out of that. It's still too early to call it, but obviously the first step, Netflix prevailed in that auction for Warner Bros. A really large deal. Yeah. Also a very kind of rare move for Netflix, but it's still not quite a done deal for sure.
Could they restructure this deal? Is there anything they can do to this deal to make it more regulatory friendly?
Yeah, Guy, I mean, that obviously is something that during the negotiations of this deal and any deal is always analyzed. What is the plan B, whether if antitrust regulators, kind of step up and scrutinize a deal, what are the alternatives? I am sure there has been a lot of analysis, going on behind the scenes, and obviously the lawyers, especially the antitrust lawyers, will kind of, look very, very deeply into this. For months, obviously, they've been analyzing that. Now, how and when and if the deal could be restructured remains to be seen. Also, just bear in mind there is this massive $5.8 billion breakup fee, right? So that also gives some reassurances to, especially Warner Bros. In the case that the deal doesn't materialize in the end and they have to start it all over again. Obviously, it's a massive distraction for the companies during that process. And there will be a lot of questions raised. There will be a lot of people who are more or less vocal about the benefits, the pros and cons of getting this deal, through the finish line. But in terms of restructuring the deal, obviously different options will be on the table.
Yes, Manuel, I want to ask you about tech and media coming together. I mean, Phil, Netflix is a media business, surely, but sometimes we think of it as a tech company. In the past, that's raised eyebrows, tech and media coming together. It's not always told us great things about valuations. I wonder what this means for the industry, this particular tie-up.
Yeah, Anna, I mean, if we look back at the industry within not just tech and media, but actually the overarching telecoms, media and technology, also known as TMT, we've seen a number of permutations within the three segments, right? We've seen telecom companies building and buying tech companies. We've seen media companies converging with telecom, and we've seen tech companies converging with media and telecoms. I mean, the three of them come together, and there is different iterations across different times, over the years, in which we see the three of those kind of coming together and then kind of like separating. Now we're seeing, as you well said, the media and tech coming together. I think it sets a precedent for other potential deals in this space, but I wouldn't draw too much of a conclusion, because these different entities across the TMT spectrum come and go all the time over history. Some of them are successful. Many of them have proved unsuccessful, so it remains to be seen on this one in particular.